has been the through line of this entire episode of the Sports Cubicle. Craig Counsell is now the new manager of the Chicago Cubs, and it was an emotional day for Cub fans as David Ross, the casualty of this hiring, and it is a huge deal. 5 years, average annual salary of $8 million, the highest paid manager in baseball. I think it's a great move for Chicago. I've talked about it the entire episode. Your thoughts when the breaking news hit that the North Side has a new skipper?
I was sorry to see Dave Rossi go. I mean, he links to the 2016 team, being the catcher on that team, and had some big moments in the Cleveland series. So that's very nostalgic. So we lose that. And Counsell, I mean, might take a little while to be accepted since he was with the enemy. And in my mind, you pay this guy this much money. I would rather pay Bellinger that money. I mean, the players actually are the ones that are the ones that matter, or Candelario, or people like that are going to make a bigger difference, in my opinion, than Counsell. And actually, I thought that there were a couple of years where the Milwaukee team underperformed with him. Honestly, I mean, his demeanor seems calm enough, and he's a little snarky with the press, but they'll slap him around and get him back in shape.
So there's a few things that I've kind of talked about when it comes to the Counsell move. I think, for one, if you're looking at what it means for a manager, right? If it's anywhere from 4 to 7 games, I think the idea of David Ross being a good manager, but Craig Counsell being a top 5 manager might be the difference of the Cubs having a better last 2 weeks of September and getting into the playoffs. I think David Ross is going to be just fine. He's going to find a job in a booth. He's going to be a manager somewhere. David Ross has the world in his hands. It's what he wants to do. I think what's fascinating about this whole thing is the implications. Now, we do know that managers' salaries are not part of the salary cap or whatever version of that you want to talk about baseball. So that's coming straight from the owner's pockets. So in theory, it shouldn't impact going after and re-signing Cody Bellinger. I think the Cubs, and I've mentioned this on this episode itself, I don't think the Cubs are going to sign people. I think the Cubs are going to acquire people. And I think Cub fans have to get used to that verbiage. I don't think the Cubs are necessarily going to go out there and sign X, Y, and Z baseball player. They might. That's definitely on the table, right? Like Shohei might be out there. That might be an outcome. I think what's more likely is they're going to trade for Pete Alonso and for Juan Soto. So I'm under the impression that they're going to have a lot of salary on that roster again. It's just going to be acquired. Your thoughts, Marvelous. Are they going to sign or acquire talent for this baseball team and their new manager?
Well, if they sign, that's what I'm leaning towards. Because if they trade, what are they going to do? Trade Pete Crow Armstrong, and their prospects, because that's what the other teams are going to want. Obviously,
I think that's what it is. I think, and we'll go back to it. But my theory is that it's going to be Ian Happ and or Christopher Morel.
Okay, that's a possibility. But I would think that the teams might want the younger, prospects that the Cubs got the last time around in the Rizzo Bryant era, and so far none of them have really shown to be outstanding in the limited exposure they've had. I mean, Crow Armstrong didn't get a hit in his September, but they were still, in the playoff hunt. So it's hard to really say. They do have some arms that they could send over too, and they already got rid of the one first baseman and Young, and they still have a bunch of others like Mervis and such. So I thought they might go prospects, but I see your point. They could do that, but I still think that the way the things are working in baseball right now, signing seems to be the way to go, and maybe they'll buck the trend, as you say, but I think that they're going to try to sign people.
I think it's going to be a mixture of both. I think they're going to do the Frankenstein of it. I think they're going to acquire hitting, and they're going to sign pitching, because pitching is just money, right? There's the chance of the Jacob deGrom where you just lose your pitcher and somehow still make it to the World Series. But as long as you're not investing type of prospects, opposed to positional players where you're more likely to get back your return in investment. So it's going to be a very fun winter now for Cub fans. It was already going to be an exciting one, but now things have kind of changed. The complexion of the National League has changed due to this major move at Craig Counsell, now the new manager of the Chicago Cubs. But we'll leave it on this, Marver. Are you excited knowing how much we love David Ross, Cubs legend, Grandpa Rossi, World Series home run, everything, him being lifted up and carried around Progressive Field, all that being put to the side, a manager move. Are you excited of the prospect of what this now means and what it could indicate for the Chicago Cubs moving forward?
Well, you know me, I'm always the one that says, show me. So I want him to show me. I mean, did he show me in Milwaukee? I mean, they won the division. I mean, did he get the most out of the team? What did he do? It was brilliant. I mean, wouldn't have had a closer at the end of the season with the Cubs unless he went out there and did it himself. I mean, I may have thought that the manager, how much difference do they make a difference of 10 games, 20 games? I mean, that's what they're hoping for with this kind of move. But I'm the kind of the wait and see attitude, because I mean, the greatest managers have succeeded because of their players, in my view. So I think they have to have the players. I mean, if they have a bunch of players that don't perform, the manager could stand on his head and it doesn't make any difference. I mean, what is his motivational technique superior? I mean, I don't know. I really haven't analyzed him enough. He looks fairly, stern and calm, but he does seem to have, like I was saying before, a little bit of an edge when I've seen him at the press. So we'll see what happens, because I think that edgy managers and coaches haven't had too much success in Chicago. Let me just say that, except for maybe Ditka.
Well, we'll find out, Marvelous. That's going to be fun, right? Because if they find a way to bring in this talent and they do have a manager that is able to give them that +4, that +5 in victories, anything is on the table, right? We just saw the craziest of World Series. All you need to do is get into it. Yeah. My new theory, right? And we haven't had a chance to talk about it, you and I have now learned to separate 162 and the postseason. It are two different things. 162 games is a sample to show you who was the best team in the summer, who had the best roster, who had the most depth. But in October, when it's a 5-game series, it's a 7-game series, it's cold, and you're in a random East Coast city one day and the West Coast the next. Anything happens. Every variable, every variance. The only thing that does matter is that you're in it, because it can fall your way. And that is the most important thing. And I think that's what Cub fans want. And if this gets them one step closer, I think all of us would trade in, as much as we love him, Grandpa Rossi. But Marvelous are going to be all over this. Of course, we're going to be all over this. We're going to see what Jed and Carter have up their sleeves. And I think it's going to be better vibes on this side than our unfortunate colleagues who are covering the other side of Chicago. Marvelous, you got to get out of here. You're on location. Thank you for all your hard work, as always. We'll be all over this. Next time we talk, we'll talk about the season tournament going on in the NBA and all the absolute nonsense at the United Center. He's the marvelous one, Dan Marver. I'm Mike Mercado. Let us know your thoughts. How do you think the Chicago Cubs are going to handle this winter heading into next season? We got more coming up next here on the Sports Cubicle. He's the marvelous one, Dan Marver. I'm Mike Mercado.